Welcome to Harmony and Improvisation with Doub Pearce, a podcast dedicated to helping musicians of all levels to play better music. Join us in these upcoming episodes as we explore the ins and outs of major diatonic harmony. Visit us at harmonyimprov.com. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast platform. Partner with us at patreon.com/harmonyimprov. Welcome once again to Harmony and Improvisation. Thanks for joining us.
Back to another episode of Harmony and Improvisation. So far we've gotten through a lot of basic material in terms of note sets and chord triads, arpeggios. Today I just wanted to talk a little bit about, this will be a very short one, about why these triads sound the way they do, the functions. I've given just a few examples of why things tend to pull your ear, why triads pull one direction or the other, or sometimes don't pull. And what I mean by that is demand movement. So if we're going to be in the key of C major here, or the note set of C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. So this is going to be called the tonic chord, or the one chord of that key and or note set. That key and or note set contains seven different chords: C, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, A minor, B diminished, and back to C. And we learned this when we were looking at, did the episodes related to triads in a key. Now we're going to look at the function of some of those triads. The strongest tension and release that exists in diatonic music, at least for sure, but in general Western music that you hear, is the sound of the 5 chord, which again, let's look at key of C, C, D minor, E minor, F, G. That 5 chord is called dominant in terminology. It's called the dominant chord. And what dominant indicates is that it is, if we extended it to the 7, it would be a dominant 7 chord and have even more tension that wants to pull back to the 1 chord. G to C. G to C. G to C. G, little out of tune, G to C. G to C. G to C. G to C. Root position G to second inversion C. Root position G to second inversion C. So there's a 5, the C, E, G has the G on the bottom in that one. First inversion G, that's got a B on the bottom, to a root position C. See how that's such a nice movement? Got nice what's called voice leading. Second inversion G has a D on the bottom, G, B, D, and I will tune up at some point, G to a first inversion C. Second inversion G to a first inversion C. Just a nice sound, the voice leading's there. You don't have to, do those inversions. You can just go G and still hear that resolution. So if you're playing virtually any type of music, That's the sound of the dominant 5. The 5-chord dominant 7, I haven't thrown a 7 in yet, but that's the sound of it going from 5 to 1. Very strong pull. For you YouTubers who are watching the YouTube video, which again, if any of you podcasters want to go to YouTube, you can do screenshots of the graphics that I put up and use them for your resources. You'll notice in the first example where it says Roman, this is also your first introduction to Roman numerals, Roman numeral 5, which is a big V, and the large V denotes a major 5 chord, or a major triad in this case, GBD. And you notice the B I have in red to a 1 chord, capital Roman numeral 1. And you'll notice that the B and the C are a half step, the B in the 5 chord and the C in the 1 chord are a half step away from each other. Well, that's where the majority of that pull comes from. The half step interval, the semitone that pulls from the G, there's your B, to the C. G, C. Okay? Now, let's look at, if we make, the next major group of episodes is going to be on diatonic chords that are implied out to the 7th, meaning we're going to add another third on top of the triads that we've already learned. So just as an introduction to that, it's a good example so that you can see what a 5/7 chord sounds like and what a major 7 chord sounds like, if I play it correctly. Yeah. G7, or Roman numeral 5 with a 7, to the 1 major 7. And what we have there, if you'll notice, I've spelled it out for you in the 5 chord, GBDF, that B and that F that B and that F are what are called a tritone interval. We talked about that in our intervals episodes. And that tritone is an even stronger voice leading to go to the 1 chord. Because the B wants to pull to the C in the C chord. The B, which is the 3rd of the G chord, wants to pull to the C, which is the 1 of the 1 chord. And the F, which is the 7 of the 5/7 chord, the dominant 7 chord, wants to pull to the E of the 1 chord. So you've got 2 notes that want to pull to there. So that is a very strong pull to resolve to the 1 chord. So that's the function of the dominant chord, the 5 chord pulling to the 1. Now that's really, again, outside of, just staying within diatonic note sets, that's the strongest tension release that you will find. Let's look at some other chords within C major that have movement between them, but not quite as strong of a pull. Let's look at the 4 chord, next example down, FAC, to the 5 chord, GBD. Well, those two, I mean, you could hang on this all day long and it wouldn't really bother you, right? But if you hung on that, it would want to go, right? Okay. 4 to the 5 chord, FAC to GBD. You could write a song just on those 2 chords. And we'll find in the next episode playing a C major note set over the top of those two chords all day long. All right. The next example is a 2/5. Now, 2/5 in jazz music is really, they call it the most important set of changes in jazz, and basically it is because it determines so many things. It's just not a 2/5 set of chord changes, although in jazz music there are bazillions of 2/5s that happen, a bunch of different flavors of 2/5s, not just major ones. But 2/5 also is a set of chords that can determine melodies even not over a 2/5 chord progression. That's probably confusing. As we move into more complex types of music, sometimes you're thinking one chord set of chord changes, but you're actually playing over a completely different set of chord changes. It's the ability to think kind of like pianists in particular, left-hand, right-hand thinking. Pianists are just great at dividing their minds and being able to think harmony in one hand and melody in another hand, but also a particular harmony, jazz pianists in particular harmony in the left hand and a completely different harmony in the right hand. And that's oversimplifying it, but that's the way I think of it initially. 2/5, and you'll notice the Roman numeral 2, if you're looking at the graphic, is a little 2. That means minor. So a little 2 would be D minor. A little better. Okay, so the little 2 is D minor to G. And you'll notice that the D minor, DFA, well, that F and A is the 1 and 3 of the 4 chord. Am I talking too fast? Okay. The D minor, DFA, the F and A are the same notes as the root and third of the 4 chord F. So the 2 chord and the 4 chord are very closely related. Very closely related. They sound much the same in a lot of things. As a matter of fact, if you extend out the 4 chord and throw a D in, that's a D minor 7, or it could be thought of as an F6. That's what that sounds like. So a D minor 7 and a F6 have the same exact notes in them. See how it's important to be able to think of music in multiple ways. A D minor is not always just a D minor. But in this case, it is D minor to G. That D minor to G, that again could go on forever, and there are a lot of songs written with those 2 chords as, mainstay part of the melody. And again, you will learn in the next episode that those 2 chords, you can play a C major note set over it all day long and make beautiful music. Okay, last but not least, G, or what am I doing? No, C, sorry. C, which is the major 1, or the large Roman numeral 1, to A minor. ACE, which is a little 6, you notice, because it's a minor triad. 1 to 6. 1 to 6. And again, those can go on forever. Now, why is that? Well, once again, you'll notice that the C and the E, that are the 1 and 3 of the 1 chord, the big Roman numeral major C major chord, are the same 2 notes that are the 3rd and the 5th of the 6th chord minor. So the 3rd and the 5th of the A minor are the same notes as the root and the 3rd of the C major. So So those two chords are also very closely related. They can go on forever. Now that C major can also, if you extend, for instance, if you take the A minor and extend it another third up to the G, it's just like stacking that C, E, G on top of the A, C, E. So you got A, C, E, G. Now that's an A minor 7 chord. A minor 7. Because the G is the 7, or the flatted 7, I should say, of the A minor chord. I am tangling my words. But if you throw that A up on top of the C major triad, again, it's a C6. Hear that sound? So those chords are, very closely related. So the bottom three examples in the graphic, if you're watching YouTube, are the 4-5 chord, the 2-5, the 4-5 chord changes, the 2-5 chord changes, and the 1-6 chord changes. Though all of those don't have a strong pull to resolution. I mean, a little bit, because you're moving notes, but the big one is the 5-7 to 1 major 7, or the 5 to 1 pull. The function of that is huge. The one thing that I'll add is that if the 4 to 5 transition, the 4 chord to the 5 chord, or the 2 chord to the 5 chord, are in the context of a song that sounds like it's in C. In other words, if it's not just D minor, G, D minor to G, but you're actually hearing the C resolution, if it starts off like this. Well, that's definitely going to want to pull back to 1. So again, in the context, the 2-5 in the context of a C tonal center, I guess you would call it. That's what I call it. A song that sounds like it's centered around a C major sound. That D minor to G is definitely going to want to pull. So that's the caveat. Same thing for the 4-5. If I've got a tonal center that's this, it's going to want to go back to the C. So the 4-5 and the 2-5 can be static and okay on their own, but in the context of a tonal center of C major, the 5 chord's always going to want to pull back to the 1. Okay, enough on chord functions. Next couple of episodes are going to be a little more fun. I hope that you're going to kind of chime in and learn to, improvise a little bit. Hopefully have fun with it too, because when I first learned that this initial intro to improvisation was possible, it just opened up a whole world for me. So I hope it does for you too. See you then.